Hey guys, welcome back to another fun farmhouse DIY video. Today I am crafting my stash because, well, I have got a ton of stuff that I need to work through because there's just no place for me to put things. So we're making some budget-friendly Dollar Tree DIY home decor with mostly farmhouse style, but you know, make it your own. Let's get started with today's video. Up first is a calendar I've had in my stash for a long time. That is a 2022 calendar from the Dollar Tree, and they're great, but sometimes I think the images are great, but I don't know what to do with them. So we're finally using this one. I'm using the cover, which is nice because it's a little bit thicker, but I am doing the painstakingly time-consuming task of fussy cutting out this wreath, but it was worth it. I won't show it all to you, but we are going to cut out the best we can every leaf of this wreath on the calendar. And then for the center, that was a little bit trickier. I pulled out my little precision scissors from the Dollar Tree, and it took me a little bit of time, but I got it done, and I do think it was worth it. It's not hard. It just takes time and a little bit of patience. And so once I have that all done, we're going to show you just a little bit more. It did take a while because there was all these leaves sticking, off of the wreath. Okay, so I'm into my stash, and I have these wood toned patterned paper from Hobby Lobby. It was like in a large pack. And I also have this frame that I had picked up at a thrift store for 99 cents, or maybe it was $1, but either way, $1. And I was just picking out what paper I thought looked good with the wreath and looked good with the frame. I was originally going to leave the frame completely, but I did just enhance some of the details on that frame. So I Mod Podged the back of this wreath cutout and let it dry, and then we're going to use the iron-on method and attach that to the paper. Now, you just place a piece of parchment paper and take an iron. I have a mini heat press from HTV Romp, but you can use your household iron just with no steam on a low temp, and it will reactivate the Mod Podge, and you'll get a nice adherence. But you can also go ahead and just use a glue stick or some Mod Podge by itself and just put it down. Being that I use the top of a calendar versus the page, it makes it a little bit thicker and less likely to wrinkle, but I thought that this method would work really good. So I wanted to add something else to the sign, and I thought these embellishments from the Dollar Tree from my stash would be another good option. So they have these little like foam stickers to help erase them. Well, I didn't want that, so I'm peeling that off, being very careful to not tear the page. And then the writing is also on another foam sticker. So I peeled it off, and it says the same thing underneath, and it looked pretty good, but it wasn't as crisp and clean. I thought about just using the words there, but ultimately I peeled the foam off of that. And then I didn't like the brown frame around this piece just because it didn't match the rest of what I was doing. So I did trim that off with my paper cutter, and then I did go around with a permanent marker and just kind of highlighted the edges, made it look like there's a little bit of a border there. I did the edges so you can see it from the top, but not a ton. So I hope that makes sense. I mean, you got to see it, so it should. And then I'm just using a glue stick to attach the words on top. I didn't necessarily have to do that, but I did like how it just looked a little bit better that way. And then we're going to use a glue stick, and we're going to attach this to the center of our frame, or center of our picture. And then this is a frame I picked up at a thrift store for $1, and I love the rustic, distressed look of the frame, but I did want to add a little bit of darker color just to kind of bring out the wood grain in the paper I chose. So I'm very lightly dry brushing with the color Elephant by Waverly, just kind of adding to the distress. It's kind of like a white wood with like a distressed wood under, or with just like wood peeking through. But anyways, I distressed it a little bit more. And then I realized for some reason I just thought this paper was the same size as the frame, and it's not. So I just had to trim off a little bit from each side because I had already centered the wreath. So I had to just, I could have just traced the glass, but ultimately I ultimately did use the back of the frame to trace it. I couldn't use my paper cutter for the long ends because it wouldn't fit in my paper cutter. Anyways, we're going to trim that down to size and get that into our frame. And that is it for this one. It was a great way to use up things that have been in my stash for a very long time. Here's a look at the frame and just kind of the enhancement that I did with the elephant paint. And I thought this was a really nice sign. It could also be hung on the wall. I'll probably just put it on a shelf somewhere though. Let me know what you think. Up next from my stash, I have these terracotta saucers and a spindle. I previously had made some candlesticks, so we're going to do that again, but this one is going to be a bit different. The terracotta saucers, I think, came from Hobby Lobby in a like a pack of like 6 of them, I think, so a pretty good size pack. And then the spindles from my stash from a friend. So we're going to start by sanding that down just to clean that up. I'm going to wipe it down with a baby wipe. I'm also trying to sand down the edges and make that nice and flat. So I'm going to use some Gorilla household glue. This is good for wood. It's also good for like paper. It's good for ceramics. So I was hoping that it would work really good for, even though terracotta, I don't know that that classifies as ceramic, but we're going to do some of the Gorilla wood glue and then some hot glue just to help hold it in place immediately. And I'm just being very gentle so it doesn't like shift. And I'm wiping that with my finger so that like there's not a bunch of excess glue oozing out. And trying to do it in a way that my arm is not blocking the camera. Okay, so I'm going to flip it over just to make sure I can get it centered. And I did put a bottle of paint on there to weight it down while the glue dried. Now, ultimately, one side did not glue super well. And so I had to do it a couple of times. I'm just going to peel off the glue, the hot glue, and we're going to do it again. So I think what was happening here is that the one end of the spindle was not super flat, and therefore it wasn't adhering all the way around. So I think I'm pretty sure that was the error because the other side had no problems at all. We're going to give this whole thing a coat of Waverly chalk paint in the color white. It did actually, I believe it took 2 coats because mainly because of the wood. The terracotta soaks up that paint really good, but it does take the paint really well. So, and then the chalk paint is, a bit thicker, but we're going to do 2 coats just to make sure that this gets covered well. If you're enjoying this video, I would love it if you gave it a thumbs up. That would help out my channel so very much. YouTube likes it when people like the video. So then they're more likely to share my video with someone else. All right, so I wanted to go for a bit of distressing. I could have sanded down the wood spindle to bring up some of that, but then it wouldn't be on the top and bottom. So I went in with some Elephant Chalk Paint by Waverly, again using a chippy brush and just dabbing off most of that paint and just kind of going around and highlighting it as much as I wanted to. I start with very little and then work my way up because you can't really take it off very easily. I mean, you could sand it and paint it again, but just build on it. And then we're going to seal this with some wax. I'm using Waverly's clear wax, brushing it on and wiping it off with a cloth. And I think you're supposed to let it sit for a bit before you buff that in. So just read the instructions on any of those things you use to seal. And my head's going to keep getting in the way, but I am going to use some twine around the top and the bottom. I thought that was pretty, and I also thought it would help make it more sturdy. But then as I was doing that, I'm pretty sure... yeah, I realized this one was still not sticking very good. So I had to do it again. Once again, I believe, so I went in with some super glue gel and that worked, but I'm pretty sure it was just because it was not smooth. And I should have paid more attention before I got started and made sure that it was like totally flat before I did that. But you know what? It worked. So if you make a mistake, just keep trying. You'll get it to work. So we're just going to wrap the twine around the top and the bottom. I thought that was a nice accent. Also thought it would hide any places where it was connecting in any glue. I thought it was a nice touch. And that's it for this budget-friendly candlestick. Candlesticks can be kind of expensive, and I'm using a flameless candle on it. So I do think the candlestick is sturdy, but I also am not risking it by putting a flame on it. Up next from my stash is a previous sign that I had made that I'm redoing, but these are using 2 little signs from the Dollar Tree that had been glued together, and this had previously been painted. If you shop at Dollar Tree and do a lot of DIYs or buy their home decor, I'm sure you can tell what sign these are. They have them out for most of the seasons and holidays, and I don't know what these ones were from, but anyways, they're already attached together. And I'm going to give this a good coat of paint. I make a lot of DIYs, and so whether you have YouTube or you just make them for your own stuff, for your own home, when you make a lot of DIYs, one of the things that's fun about it is you can switch up your decor more frequently without spending a bunch of money. So whether you're making this for the first time, it's budget friendly, or if you have something in your home that you just have and you're kind of bored with it just because you like change, go ahead and make it over. I like to do that a lot. So we're gonna give this a fresh coat of paint and painting all the sides in white. And then I am going to be using these transfers. These are IOD transfers that a friend had given me. Dollar Tree has some really pretty floral ones. I know they can be hard to find. There's also a lot of transfers on Amazon, but you could also do a stencil, or you could Mod Podge on a paper, like a calendar page or something else. So just ideas here. And I'm gonna just transfer on these floral pieces. I cut them out. Don't be afraid to cut them up to use them on a piece that works for you. Maybe you don't have a larger piece. These are pretty large transfers, and I don't do a lot of really big pieces. So we're going to just lay that down, transfer these. I'm using a popsicle stick to transfer, and you just rub all along this. I am trimming off at the edge here, but you're just going to rub all along it until you can see it detaching from the plastic transfer sheet. You can kind of just see it changes. And then there was one piece here that did not do well, so I just cut off another scrap piece of that same color flower and just transferred more of it. And then a couple on the other side. And when you are done transferring your transfers, you're going to take the transfer sheet. How many times can I say transfer in this DIY? And you're just going to rub that across the whole transfer. Apparently I can do it one more time in order to make sure that it is sealed in. So I wanted to put some words on the this sign, and I have these stickers. I think these were from Hobby Lobby. I got them a long time ago on clearance, and I love these ones because, well, one, they're like brown, like a craft paper, but they're also thick, so they're just a little bit sturdier. But I'm just going to put gather. I just cut them out super close on the sheet to make sure that I could actually fit this word on here and like, center it properly. And we're just going to attach that. I usually put the stickers down pretty lightly initially in case I need to move them. Hopefully you can. Some stickers move easier than others, but once it's in place, I press them down, and when I'm going in with this elephant chalk paint with my chippy brush and just having very little paint on it, we're going to distress it. I'm doing the edges. I am going to do the sides just to, I don't know, I like that look. And then very, 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 very lightly across the whole thing. I like that look, but you can feel free to leave that out, if you like a crisper look. But I thought this was a really pretty shelf sitter. This isn't actually really fall, but I do feel like the tones would work well with fall. I feel like this peachy coral color works good for summer and spring, but also for fall. I'm not doing fall quite yet, coming soon, but let me know what you think. Up next, these little, what is this, a wood palette? I think is what it's called, from Dollar Tree, and some wood beads. I've had a couple of these palettes in my stash for a very long time, and just didn't really know what to do with them. So I'm going to use one of them, and we're going to make a little riser, and then we're going to make something for the riser. So I'm using some wood beads to give this a lift, to put some feet on them. I'm using my Gorilla household glue. I'm not using some hot glue as well, only because there wasn't a lot of surface for me to attach this with, because only the bottom of the bead would adhere. And so I just went with the wood glue, or the household glue, because I thought it was going to work better. I did smear it with my finger to make sure there wasn't a bunch oozing out. And then I pressed them, gave them just like a minute for the glue to begin setting. And then I placed another palette on top just so that the weight of this paint can would be distributed and we could make sure that it was attached well before I did anything with it. Then once I did, I wanted to stain this with Antique Wax by Waverly. Now, because of the palette and all of these openings, this took a little bit because I wanted all of the spots, all of the sides to have the stain. Also, I wanted the feet, the beads, to have some stain. So this took a little bit of time to just get into all the nooks and crannies, but it's not hard. I think I might have at some point switched to an even smaller paintbrush to just get into all of those sides and just get that some really good coverage. If you're new to my channel and you enjoy budget-friendly DIYs, I would love it if you would consider subscribing. That is how YouTube works the following, or I don't even know what the terms are on other social media platforms because I don't use any of them. But hit the subscribe button and then turn on the notification bell, and that way YouTube will actually show you my videos when I post. Once I get done, I did do a light wiping with a baby wipe, but obviously I couldn't get into all of the spaces with that. So I tried to go over the feet again because The antique wax wasn't sticking very well. It was like there was a little stripe across it, but I actually kind of like it how it looks, and it was the same on all of them. So I was like, all right, we're gonna go with that. I wanted to add another detail. So I have this lace ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I'm gonna glue this around the perimeter, kind of like hanging down. This is a little bit more of an elegant touch to Farmhouse, but I still feel like the neutral tones is Farmhouse. I'm not sure the terminology. I was recently reading, like, because I always don't know what words to use on my titles and my videos. I don't want to be misleading. So I was like looking at descriptions of like all of these different styles, and depending on where you read, they all have different descriptions. And then like a lot of the different styles have similar characteristics, like natural elements, neutral tones, those kinds of things fall into several different categories. So I'm sticking with Farmhouse because I don't know, that's what makes sense to me. Anyways, I thought this was a cute touch. It kind of like just added a nice little feminine touch to the more plain rustic, just wood stained look of the riser. So I just put a little bit of glue around the top of it. There wasn't a lot of surface to adhere that to. Anyways, now we're gonna make ourselves, I saw this idea and I thought it was so cute. It was just an image I came across. It wasn't like from a particular person. And I have this piece of burlap from the Dollar Tree in a jar from, I don't know, some food that I bought, or maybe a canned jelly that someone gave me. I don't know. I like to save jars. I love this shorter round one. I think works perfect for this. And we're just going to cut out a piece of burlap. I'm like just measuring it with my fingers here. And then I had a couple pieces of the burlap that were fraying, so I pulled them out, and we're going to use that to tie this up. So I'm just gathering it. It's more of a bunchy, like burlap sack style. I took a couple of the strands from the burlap itself to tie this up. You could also just use a piece of twine or a piece of ribbon, but I'm going to keep this super simple. So I know this itself isn't much of a DIY, but I thought it was really cute, and maybe just using stuff that you already have on hand. So a simple knot here is going to do it for this one. Just a little knot. It's not the tightest thing in the world, but it's holding absolutely fine. It's been done for a few days and it's just sitting on a shelf, so it's working. We're going to trim off the burlap just a little bit so that it's a little bit more in order, and then trim off the piece that I tied it on with. And then I just have some scraps of greens. Is this, I know what this is. What is this called? This type of greenery? I feel like it's a type of eucalyptus. I know it's not the big eucalyptus. Anyways, it's just some scraps that I had in my stash. And I love how this one came out, and I set that on the little riser. I thought that was a sweet little touch. So let me know what you think about this one down below. And are you crafting your stash, or are you on the hunt for some things? I've got so much, I'll be crafting my stash a while. All right, well, that is going to do it for today's video. If you liked it, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.